Hey everyone, Drew Dose of the Prophet here. Today I have my 8-year-old son holding the camera, recording for his first time. He's never done it before. Today I'm going to show y'all how to make meatballs. Very simple recipe. Phase 1, I put a can of cheapo sauce on the burner. I'm probably going to discard the sauce at the end of it. But the reason I do that, it's better than just sticking them in the oven. It gives them a little bit more flavor. When I start the cooking process, I'm going to add some cheap red wine to it. Kind of give it a little bit more of a fruity grape flavor, if you will. Primary ingredients for the meatballs, typically you want to use veal in it or pork. Today I'm just going to use ground beef. So the first thing I have is 1.25 pounds of ground beef. I think this is 20%, so you don't need lean. I prefer to use ground beef that's got a little bit more fat in it, just because the fat equals flavor. Next thing I have with the lazy route here, just got pre-minced garlic, and the reason I did that is so I don't have to chop it. A lot of recipes call for 1 egg. I'm going to use 2. The reason I use 2 is because it gives it a softer consistency, less hamburgery, less meatloafy, more meatball-y. That's where, you know, the veal kind of comes in and kind of softens up the meat a little bit more. So to supplement that, we're going to just use 2 eggs. Also have Himalayan pink salt, 2 pearl onions. One of them is going to be minced and add to the mix of meatballs. The other one's going to go into the sauce. Granulated garlic. Italian style breadcrumbs. Now it doesn't really matter if you use Italian style or not, because I have enough seasoning to make it an Italian flavor. But I like this one just because it has literally the Italian seasoning, as you can see over there, already in there. So anyhow, black pepper. And did I miss anything? That's it. So that's it. So I'm going to take one of these pearl onions here and just kind of show you my favorite way of, everyone has their own way of peeling an onion, chopping it, so on and so forth. But I want some very small pieces because we have some sensitive bellies in the house. So first thing I do, I have a very sharp knife. I want to make sure it's sharp because the duller the knife is, the more risk of cutting yourself is. I want to go at the very end of the onion here. Can the camera pick that up? Cut the very tip of it off. Okay. Next thing I do, now again, this is my way of doing it. This is the way my mom taught me, so it's the way I'm always going to do it. Move this over to the side. I slice the onion in the middle, like that. And then I can simply just kind of peel the skin back as I go along here. Then clearly we will discard the remaining skin and any unused portion of the onion. Now that I have this, I cut it into very small rings, and I kind of try and keep the rings on top of one another. Alright, so got the onions minced. Got a little bit of skin in there. Well, got the onions minced. The other onion, as you can see on the burner, is complete in the saucepan. It doesn't really matter what order you do this, but I'm going to start with the eggs. Take my egg here, crack it, add it to there. Next thing I do is usually add the ground beef. Again, it doesn't matter what order you do this in. Breadcrumbs. Now, a lot of recipes call for measuring cups and stuff like that. I literally just dump some in and go with my gut instinct. So basically, the ratio of eggs to breadcrumbs depends on your preference and consistency. If you want a more softer consistency, in which I prefer, you typically want to add more eggs and less breadcrumbs. If you want more balance, do 1 egg, and I call it a couple shakes, but it's probably about 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs in there. The more breadcrumbs you add in there, the stiffer the consistency gets. So again, I don't use measuring cups. Feel free. Typically, I would recommend, if you're going to use a measuring cup, I would say anywhere from 1/2 cup to maybe 1 cup of breadcrumbs, depending on how much ground beef you have. If you have like a pound mix of ground beef, then you want to keep it a little lower, maybe even 1/4 cup. If you're cooking for a lot of people and you got 4-pound mix, then you probably want to add maybe even a whole cup of breadcrumbs, and just when you start mixing the meat and you can feel it in your fingers, and you feel it's either going to be soft or it's going to be firm. It's not rocket science. So, anyhow, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get out a little spoon here, and I'm going to drain the garlic from any of the water that's in there. And this is probably a tablespoon and a half of garlic. I'm going to kind of just throw it in there, maybe another tablespoon, so maybe about 2.5 tablespoons of garlic added to the mix. Next, again, I don't use measurements. My grandma and my mother both taught me how to cook, and they never use measuring cups. So I'm going to take off the lid and just kind of show you how little Parmesan is in there. Can you see that? So as you can see, it's maybe 1/3 of a cup, I would guess. I'm going to dump it all in there. Okay. Saying I'm going to add, this is the granulated garlic. You got a sprinkle side, you got a spoon side. Open up the spoon, just kind of in there. Okay. Grind up some salt. And you can call this maybe a tablespoon, maybe a teaspoon, somewhere in there, not much. Now pepper, you want to be real careful. Maybe a teaspoon of pepper. Next thing, take the ring off, I don't want to get it dirty. Here's the mix, okay? Now, you gotta have a little bit of guts here and just kind of dive in. Don't worry about your hands getting dirty, you can always wash them. Now, I literally just start mixing around. Now, this consistency to me, right now in the beginning, yeah, it's about what I want. It's not near as stiff as some people might prefer. Again, I like a softer consistency. And I'm just letting this go right through my fingers. Camera, can you pick up on that? And I'm just kind of mixing it through. Now, as you can see, the more I mix between my fingers, the more I squeeze, move around the bowl here, the more it just resembles ground beef and less like a mix of just ingredients. So, once I have this all into a bowl and mixed up, I can start turning it into meatballs, which is a very simple process. And the process is literally just taking chunks of ground beef of the meatball mix and making them into balls. So I take a chunk about kind of like a large hamburger size, and I kind of just throw it back and forth with my hands, kind of massaging it, kind of rolling it like this. You roll it. Now what I'm trying to avoid are the little seams. See these seams here? That'll just break up and shit. So I just kind of want to roll those out of there. Okay, sauce isn't hot yet. I was kind of expecting it to be a little warmer. Again, meatball, hamburger-sized meatballs is what we're going for here. Want nice and round, no seams. Boom. And for the sake of just making a shorter video, I am going to try and make kind of bigger meatballs. You can do this with small ones. It'll take you all afternoon to do that. They will cook faster though. Balls. How many we got in there, Mason? Is that 3?
Yep, 3.
Okay. We're going to do 5 total.
Alright.
Because I'll end up doing maybe 2 or 3 myself, and you and Gage will each have 1.
Okay.
Alright. Last one, got a little piece of onion fall out there, no big deal. Set the mixing bowl aside. Alright. So, I'm going to show you that sauce mix. Look at the sauce there. It's not yet boiling or anything. And for video's sake, I'm not going to wash my hands. What I am going to do, I'm going to take this bottle of red wine and add the remaining to it. What that does is the red wine, the sugar in it will kind of bond itself with the sauce, especially that onion I put in there and the meat, and it'll go through a caramelization process. The alcohol cooks out of the wine, so all you really have is a hint of wine flavor in your sauce. So, we cover. We'll check back in about 6 hours. We'll see how that is.
Okay.
So this is my 8-year-old son, Mason, who has gone along on this journey with me. And wave to the camera, Mason. And Mason is going to stir the sauce that we prepared. And again, I think we might just discard the sauce. But here are the meatballs coming along. I think that's a little warm for my preference. So Mason here is going to stir the meatballs slowly, and then we're going to go from 4 down to maybe between 2 and 3. So go ahead and stir those a little bit, Mason. Now, you gotta be careful when you stir these too, to not break up the meatballs. Mason's doing a nice job. So see how he's just kind of turning them over, kind of drizzling the sauce on top of the meatballs? That's what you want. You don't want to start rifling around in circles, because then you will break up the meatballs and you'll end up with meat sauce, and that's not what we want here. So, anyhow, Mason, what is your favorite food?
Your homemade meatballs.
Why is that?
Because they're really delicious and I love them.
Good deal. All right, well, we'll get back to you when this is done. All right, so we've gone not quite 6 hours. We've gone about maybe 5.5 hours, 5 hours and 45 minutes. Makes very little difference. As you can see, meatballs are pretty much done. In between shots here, we actually added some chopped red peppers. Mason's wanted to add some peppers to it. He thought it would give it some flavor and some smell. Anyhow, as you can see here, just stirring this around. And when I let that rest, all the juice, really what it is grease. When the grease comes to the top, I'm gonna literally, by the spoonful, sift it out. But for instructional purposes, I'm gonna grab tongs and we're gonna taste this. And we'll let that rest for a minute. Now that it's done, it's cooled off just enough. I cut the meatball open, just like that. Can the camera see that?
Yep. I zoomed in.
Okay. I'm gonna try a little piece.
Oh, what is it?
Ridiculous.
Okay, here. Alright, now I'm gonna try a piece and see how good it is. Hot, but I love it.
And thank you for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, and enjoy some good meatballs. Thanks again.